Welcome to Character in Action with Matthew J. Norcross, the official podcast of the 7 Degrees of Change Foundation. Come journey with us on the real-life stories of character in action. And now here's your host, Matthew J. Norcross.
Welcome to Character in Action from the 7 Degrees of Change Foundation. I'm Matthew J. Norcross here in the studio with Richard Shannon. Hey, Richard.
Hey, Matt. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. Now, you may remember a couple weeks ago when we had ctizen Speight on the show. He's an anesthesiologist in High Point, North Carolina, who's affiliated with several hospitals in the area. Well, this week, his wife Elizabeth Speight joins us. She is a mother of 3, a wife, a Navy veteran of the Vietnam War, and a practicing nurse anesthetist for nearly 40 years. She went to Bowman Gray School of Medicine Nurse Anesthesia program at Wake Forest University, practiced in Hawaii with Kaiser Permanente Hospital, and independent practice at Molokai Island Hospital, and then returned to practice at High Point Regional and with the Women's Hospital in Greensboro. Elizabeth joins us now in the studio. Elizabeth, thanks for being on Character in Action.
Well, thank you, Matt and Richard. I'm so happy to be here.
All right. Now, before we get started, can you please tell us more about yourself?
Well, I feel like I'm a person with 4 lives because I'm a mother and I'm a wife. I'm a Navy veteran, as you mentioned, and I've practiced as a nurse anesthetist all my life. But I actually grew up on a beef and dairy farm in Oregon and also served in the military and then has been practicing and caring for my family since then.
Very nice. So how do you define character?
Well, I believe character is how somebody behaves and how they act in all their situations. And to take that just a step further, how a person demonstrates their respect towards others. I view a person's character as revealing their thoughts and demonstrating them through their actions, both words and deeds, towards others. And you can especially see this when they're speaking behind closed doors.
Yeah.
We all fall short, including myself, but it's the consistency and continuing faults, even after becoming aware of them, that defines the true character of an individual. So to me, having a true character is doing the right thing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Exactly.
Thank you for your service, by the way.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I have a question. All the different lives that you lived, I feel like all of those impact motherhood probably the most. When you talk about character, was there something specific or anything that you would use or look back on to build character in your children?
I think a lot of the times when I was raising my children, I thought I could do it all. And you can do it all, but you may not do it all very well all the time. And so when I was trying to instill character into my children, I tried to teach them the morals and the values that we as a family held, but I also had them go to what I considered important, a school that taught faith and good moral values. And so I felt like those were critical needs with my children.
I love that. I like how you started it too. Is you started it with, I was thinking I could do it all on my own, and then you end with, I'm not going to do it all on my own. I'm going to have support. I'm going to have a team. I'm going to have these people because this is a big thing. Character is really important. So that's awesome.
Very important. So please tell us a story of witnessing either in person or in history. Someone that was a true phoenix, someone that was a role model who led by example and pretty much made the world a better place.
Well, I hold this one close to my heart, and so I could get choked up, and I'll try not to. I think that small moments in a person's life can also become very monumental, okay? It doesn't have to take a world-renowned, famous person to be a phoenix for me. And this was represented in an ordinary, everyday citizen and a dear friend of mine. Her name was Ellen Millis. And Ellen loved God and not only talked about her love of God and the Lord, but also I felt lived her life for God. She was always measured in her thoughts and non-judgmental of others, and who I truly felt practiced the definitions of love in the Bible. She cared all about people in the world, and in the chaos of everyday life, carried herself with such grace. We could sit and talk for hours about life, world needs, and hopes of how to solve its problems. But sadly, she was diagnosed with cancer 4 months before me and lost her fight to cancer a few months later. But throughout her illness, she continued to demonstrate her love for life and family to the end. And I loved her heart and would feel so very honored to be thought of half the person that she was.
Wow.
Yeah, that really is an incredible story. Now, please share a moment that stands out in your mind, something big or even the slightest gesture that was a transformative Phoenix moment for you, one where you knew you had a significant impact on an individual's life or on a group of people.
Well, I don't know that I personally was a Phoenix to someone in person, but I attempted to try and work with people. And I do remember doing the best I could as I looked at Ellen as I respected her. When I was in the military, I took care of an awful lot of servicemen who had been wounded and injured and had a lot of mental and physical health injuries. And I do remember one time a patient I had been taking care of many days, actually months, and he woke up from a coma, and I was talking to the patient next door, and he goes, "I know you." And it's because you talk to somebody, even when they're not currently alert, that you give them their utmost respect. And so that man there was a moment for me as well in my time.
Wow. That's powerful for you too. Can we back up for 1 second? Did you say she got cancer before you, as in you had cancer as well?
I do have cancer.
Oh, wow.
I didn't tell that.
Got you. Sorry. Okay, I can cut that out if you need me to.
No, I'll be happy to talk about it. I'm going to probably discuss it throughout. I can briefly say that I was diagnosed I was at work doing an emergency C-section one night at Women's Hospital, and I started to have some chest and neck pain. And I finished my shift because I thought maybe I was having a woman's cardiac event, and I went to the emergency room, and they threw me in the scanner, in the CT scanner, and they saw a large mass growing out of my chest, my left lung, and it was attached to my heart and my chest wall. And 2 weeks later, I was told I had non-small cell lung cancer, and then I had to be staged, and it turned to be stage 4, and it was in my brain and my spine and my hips and my liver and my kidneys. And so Ellen and I were walking a journey together, only she perished before me, and I've managed to stay here.
What an amazing thing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Because I was asking, just because, I'm not gonna lie, that just kind of threw me off, but I was just asking because the moment, I guess right now, I could just tell you is you just inspired me a lot. Like 100%. So I'll answer the question for you with that one. She's inspired me right now.
Yeah.
Because the will and the power, I was already blown away when he was talking about, your accolades and everything else. And then when you add just how, bright you are, like your smile, just like the presence you have in this room is kind of like that. I was not expecting that. I did not know. So,
Yeah.
Listen, if you can, the way you're overcoming and the way you're living right now should be inspiring anybody that's around you. And so you're doing that right now.
It really is an inspiring story, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So let's start with the trait of respect. How do you think we can rekindle the trait of respect today, speaking as both a mother and a Vietnam War veteran?
Okay. Well, being honest with a person will gain trust, and with trust comes respect. And I believe in honesty, sometimes to a fault. And it's important in a relationship, to have any relationship, is to be upfront and honest. How you communicate in your honesty is critical, though, and important to keep the dialogue moving. It's so important to teach our children manners of shaking hands, looking someone in the eye, and to be confident in themselves. The nonverbal communications given on initial contact with people speaks volumes, and they can sense a genuine behavior and an innate behavior of a human.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Now, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Matt, but sometimes I'm too blunt. Perhaps from having served in the military, making decisions, as you asked me to relate to that, quickly for others under my guidance. Or perhaps from the emergency environment I worked in for over 43 years. Sometimes we ran the codes. I was the only person there running the code. I mean, there were so many things happening, and somebody had to be abrupt and just be very direct. I do know that you must give respect in the workplace, and in order to receive it, you must give it. And I'm humbled daily by my many, many, many shortfalls with communication at home and in the workplace. But most importantly, I'm reminded frequently of my personal life of growing up on the farm and working in the fields and serving in the military and climbing the professional ladder, that no one is any less important. And that I firmly believe any work an individual contributes is as important of a cog in the wheel for its function. And without that part, there is no whole. That's my point.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's an important point as well. Now, let's move on to responsibility. Mm-hmm. Not only from your perspective as not just a veteran, but also in the medical field, what does responsibility mean to you?
Well, I think the trait of responsibility is best to hold yourself accountable, admitting your faults, and accept your responsibilities. That's all responsibilities. When we make a decision in our lives, we must accept that responsibility for our personal choices, both the good and the bad. And I believe a civics class is invaluable and should be taught in schools, so to teach our children about our community and our country's responsibilities and values as well. And as personal examples, I have a few. As an example in developing my own personal responsibilities and values and work ethics, they came from growing up on the farm. We're caring for the cattle and growing and harvesting crops, cleaning the barns, feeding the cattle, hauling buckets of water in the ice because the pipes froze over for hundreds of cattle. Morning and night, those were part of my daily life. Serving in the military was altogether a different sense of responsibility, but the foundations laid from my childhood prepared me to take on any task they gave to me. I felt like I could handle that. I've raised 3 children, while at the same time I cared for my mother-in-law 15 years after she had a stroke. I was working full-time weekends still and being mommy Monday through Friday. I could do it all, but like I said earlier, perhaps I couldn't do it all very well at times. And I eventually slowed down to focus on our family needs versus my needs and wants, because responsibility to others is first and foremost in my mind. And then again, when 9/11 came, that terrible day, I called the local naval station. They took my name and information, and I was on standby to help provide anesthesia to the wounded, because there's a large number of doctors and nurses, but not a lot of anesthesia providers. And I'd served in the military, and I was comfortable handling a gun. No fear on that end.
That's right.
Yeah.
But as we all know, there was no need. And I had called my husband, and he said go, and he'd watch the children. So both he and I felt the responsibility to others in our country before our own selves.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that.
Yep.
Yeah, 9/11 was definitely
Yep.
one of the worst moments in American history, that's for
Right.
sure.
And if you don't mind, Matt, I'd like to talk about one more thing about a sense of responsibility.
Right?
Being in healthcare all these years, both my husband and I worked directly with patients' lungs every day with anesthesia. But we were both quite unaware of lung cancer when I started my journey and its effect on people in the community. And so Where lung cancer is concerned, I felt it was and still is my responsibility to teach the public and medical communities their need for screening and diagnostics and therapeutics and research. And I've never smoked cigarettes in my life. And I have that stage 4 lung cancer, which is everywhere in my body. And so it doesn't represent people, as we all know it, as a smoker. But it incorporates many, many people who have never smoked a cigarette in their life. And there are risk factors other than smoking, such as radon and serving in the military, that I needed to inform people about. And we're fighting. The other major thing is I wanted to teach people was I felt a responsibility that we're looking at cancer now at a cellular level. It's no longer is it organ specific like lung cancer, because the medication I now take for my RET mutation, that's the name of my mutation, treats 4 cancers. It treats colon cancer, and it treats thyroid medullary cancer, and it treats pancreatic cancer. I always wondered if my girlfriend Ellen may have had my RET mutation and could have been saved. I always wonder about Patrick Swayze and Michael Landon, who had pancreatic cancer, and all the other many people with other cancers.
Alex Trebek, for example.
Alex Trebek, yes, sir. So that's also my responsibility while I'm alive, to teach people.
Yeah, and it's you're doing a good service, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it seems like there's a common thing that's happening from talking about this to talking about 9/11 to talking about even all the way back at the farm. It seems like you're a person that, because you are where you are and you care so much about people, you take on the responsibility of everything that you know to serve people with. And so you to just have that type of initiative is a very, very important thing. And I think in some sense is the fuel to responsibility.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's move on to fairness. Now, how would you define fairness, and how would you want people to demonstrate this trait, both in their professional lives and their personal lives, especially in your case, the field of medicine?
Well, I think fairness, you have to be straightforward with people, and you have to treat people equally. You just do. You have to talk to them about the consequences, and both the cause and the effects of those, and allow them to hear the information. And then, once again, that responsibility is allowing them to take charge of who they are in medicine and make the choices they choose. And you have to allow them to live with that, because they have to live with that. It's not a person's job in medicine other than to give the information, to care for people and guide them, but the person still has complete control of the choices they make with that information.
Right. Exactly.
And you can't always get the answers you want. You don't always get what you want, like the song "You Can't Always Get What You Want," but by the Rolling Stones. You can't. Life isn't always fair, and how you respond to that is everything. Okay, how you respond to the hits you take, and don't become hardened by things, but rather learn and redirect. And for me, particularly redirecting, I had been in pre-med school for 3 years, but I couldn't stay afloat any longer, so I joined the military to finish my education. I just couldn't keep going at it. So military service for 4 years, but I discovered that nurse anesthetist existed there. So I redirected myself. I had a new trajectory in life. And to reach my goal is still being an anesthesia provider. And this is what people need to know about fairness, that you should and always be treated fairly. But the choices you make, there are consequences, and you will have to live with those effects as well. And then you have to live with your choices as well.
Yes.
That's why I've been told all the time. So let's go to the trait of trustworthiness. This trait is another important one. Now, being in the medical field heavily relies on the trait of trustworthiness. And my question to you is, how do you expect to earn your trust among patients?
Well, you have to, once again, you have to be directly and honest with them. Give them the information that's important and necessary that they need to hear to make their decision makings. And so they're going to be dependent upon your care and your knowledge base. And so in order for them to develop trustworthiness within you, you must be very honest with them. And your integrity demonstrates their dependability and their trustworthiness towards you. How you speak to them and treat them with your honesty is important. It's critical.
Yeah, it is extremely important, isn't it, Richard?
It's 100%.
Yeah. So let's move on to caring. What does caring mean to you as a nurse? Not only that, but what does it also mean to you as a cancer patient?
Caring. Well, as an anesthetist, I would get people coming in who had been in gunshot wounds, murdered somebody, molested a child. It didn't matter if it was the worst person on earth. I had to treat them with the most respect that I would have given my own children or my own mother.
Right.
That's my work ethics. That's the oath I took for care. And so you have to treat the person with the same respect that you would ask of yourself to be given when you have surgery or anesthesia, I should say. And so you have to avail yourself to be listening again and demonstrate that you're trustworthy to them. Because people will tell you things when you tell them they could die under anesthesia if they're not honest and forthright. They will tell you things that they will not tell their family members. And this is because they trust you at that moment and they're trusting you with their life, I mean. And so it requires you to be quite ethical with these people. Walk a straight core values that you were educated with and treat them with the respect that you would ask to be given to yourself. And just understand that you may not be in their position if it's not for surgery, that they're experiencing something like a death in the family, that but understand their thoughts and their fears in that respect. And as far as cancer goes with me, it's an evil thing. Cancer is an evil thing. I'll repeat it again. Cancer's an evil thing. And people always may not look ill. Okay? I don't necessarily look ill when I'm walking down the street. So try to go through the symptoms and the illnesses alone is not necessary for that person. So being supportive and offering guidance for care and encouragement and hope, that's my attempt when I'm online with somebody or I get a phone call or I'm in a virtual meeting, just to be their yardstick of hope. And so a trait of caring, once again, is listening. It's key.
Right.
And not necessarily trying to solve the problem, but to listen.
Exactly. And it's very important to think about when it comes to caring. Now, let's move on to another important trait, and that is citizenship. What does it mean to you to be a good citizen?
Well, I've always thought of myself as a good citizen, but to think of what I would ask in someone else or my children to be, it's an individual's understanding of our own country's history, how we became and where we've come, and the laws and civics. Once again, I think that's very important so people can have an understanding of what this country actually represents. So citizenship starts with educating at school and your home and caring for others in your community. I tried to be an example, being involved with, there's a group called the Guild of High Point, we provided over $10 million to the hospital over the years. And we no longer exist because most of us are old now. And but it was a wonderful guild to the hospital, and it was all for patient care within the community. And then the other thing is like the pink ribbon. I always felt important to help people who had cancer, even though I never thought I would get it. But I had an individual that started this pink ribbon luncheon in High Point, and I've been on the community, the committee for the pink ribbon luncheon for the last 21 years. And teaching these to your children, these morals and values, and you're also teaching them the Bible, the biblical morals and values, that all helps to put the glue together towards your citizenship, your civic mindedness. And I also want my children, I hope they learned that the importance of listening to both sides of an argument.
Right.
Both sides of an argument. To be informed, don't just dial into one TV program, dial into the one you can't stand to listen to as well, because you have to hear viewpoints so that you can have an informed argument and talk logically with those people and have a civil debate about it. And then hopefully they will learn the laws and can give back to their own community in the future.
All right, we're about out of time. But before we close, please share with us some thoughts on how we can bring character back into our culture.
Oh, boy. Well, I don't know how to do that, actually, other than to try to teach our children what we said earlier about being civic-minded and being honest with people, forthright, treating people fairly, caring, being a citizen. Just don't leave any of those behind. It's all intertwined to making a citizen, a good contributing citizen of the United States, and a parent as well. And then you feel better about yourself. So with character, I just believe that we just need to be doing the right thing to bottle it up, button it up.
Yeah, that's a great way to conclude this episode. Elizabeth Speight, thank you for joining us. It was an honor and a privilege to be able to speak with you today.
Thank you.
Character in Action is a co-production of the Truth Network and the 7 Degrees of Change Foundation. Your host is me, Matthew J. Norcross. Our producers are Robbie Dillmore and Richard Shannon, and our intro is done by Robbie Dillmore. If you like this show, please listen to and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes are posted every Sunday. Thank you for listening, and always remember, everyone can be a phoenix.